This week we started our first of five video reactions. This first video, it was a TED Talk about the high cost of our cheap fashion. Little background. Uh, she had a very powerful speech. It was very informational. The information I learned in this speech, it helps me to know like when I go buy stuff, it helps me have a better insight and to know like what I'm actually buying instead of like just spending money on stuff. First she starts off and she says we have the power to change the pollution in this world with things we wear, our clothes. The apparel industry is the second most polluting industry in the world. In the 1960s, the average American spent about 10% of their salary each year on 25 pieces of clothing. And today we purchase three times as much as they did in the 60s. Fast fashion is what she liked to call it. These companies get a big budget for advertising purposes to ensure that the clothes are safe and that they're treating their workers good, the materials good lasting and is great for the environment. Less than 2% of clothes we wear in or buy in America, excuse me, are actually made in America, and this results in an 80% drop in manufacturing jobs. Uh, Most of the clothes in America are made now with fabric called polyester, and this is a polluting plastic that is made of fossil fuels and is in over half of our clothing. Um, uh, Polyester is bad for a number of reasons. First, it is non-biodegradable, which means every piece of polyester that we started using with is still in this world today, and that is what is really polluting our world. The microplastics in are in our oceans and food chain. So like when we wash the clothes, the water just like the fibers that are just in the water, they don't disappear. They're still here, and then they go in the oceans, which eventually goes in our food chain. And these clothes are non-breathable. So you'll notice like if you wear some polyester, you begin to sweat more. That's because the fabric that they use, the polyester in these clothes, are not non-breathable. Lastly, there are injury intensive, intensive, and um, there are 8 times more intensive to like make than linen is. Uh, these clothes are usually the clothes we wear in America are usually made in China, where coal pollutes 80% of their environment. Um, the apparel industry it makes up 10% of the total carbon footprint of the world. This is 5 times more than the airplane industry. That number jumped out to me because you think about the airplane industry and that's what when you hear pollution in air, that's really the main industry you think about, and you never think about the apparel industry. Um, one of every six people work in the clothing industry. 80%, 80% are women, and 98% of those women don't make a livable wage, which leaves them trapped in poverty. These companies First off, there are ethical guidelines in the apparel industries that are not regulated. So companies can put on a facade about what the factory really looks like, how safe their product is, and how much they're doing for the workers, when all they could really be lying. Um, in the pictures they take to like promote their factories, they are not transparency. So what transparency means is it is when a brand is willing to name the fact well, excuse me, when a brand is willing to name the factory that they are working with. They don't name the factories. These pictures do not share wages or healthcare coverage. And these pictures do not show shadow factories. A shadow factory is when like a brand will meet with a five-star factory and use that to show it off when really the other factory that they're actually using is just stuck in the background. So we never actually find out where our clothes are actually being made. And lastly, these pictures do not show material sustainability. They do not show the use of organic cotton. Cotton is the fourth largest pesticide. And they don't show whether the dye is being used correctly. Uh, this lady, she started like she realized that like you can't really change pollution as a whole, but you can make a better impact so it doesn't get worse. She started something called the New Standard, and there are three components to the New Standard. They have a user-centered design. Most companies they don't uh, make clothes to for the user. They make clothes for their benefit alone. And this new standard, they make clothes that fit the people that they are shopping to or advertising to. Secondly, they use natural materials and work directly with suppliers to create sustainability from farm to final factory. 90% of the brands that we wear don't know where their material is coming from to make their clothes. And then lastly, they use an open door policy. They use domestic production to see if the production is actually being placed at the factory under contract and not just some like she talked about earlier, like some shadow factory or something like that. Lastly, she talked about a citizen's consumer and what we can do to impact the pollution. She said something that stood out to me, and she said we can vote with our dollars. So voting with our dollars means like we actually do take time and do research on the stuff that we are buying instead of just going out and just splurging money on stuff that really in turn does not help our world. She advised us to check the tags, see what kind of material is made, see the company that made it, check the seams, make sure that it's good quality clothing and it's not that something that's just going, you throw it in the washer one time and it just tears apart. Third, she said, love what you buy. You got to make sure that what you're buying is something that you want and not just because you've seen it on somebody else. You got to love what you buy. And lastly, she said that we are allowed to ask brands these type of questions. Is the material they're using organic? Or, what's the name of the factories? The name of the mills, and are they certified? Um, this is a very, very, very impactful video that I watched. I'm glad I took the time to watch it. This video gave me a lot of insight on the apparel industry and basically the dark and evil truth that is behind the apparel industry and the stuff that they do in their factories.